Some men vanish with a whisper. Others vanish while holding everything together. I suppose I was the latter. My name's Paul Hartley. I'm 58 years old, and until recently I was a senior operations analyst at Alder and Finch Consulting, a mid-size firm that made a habit of promising efficiency to clients while quietly running on the backs of people like me. I was with them for 30 years, 3 decades, never took a sick day, never missed a deadline, never asked for credit. I believed in the work, I believed in loyalty, and I believed, foolishly perhaps, that it still meant something. When I first walked through the doors in 1995, I had a fresh haircut, a new suit, and a head full of ambition. My parents raised me on the gospel of hard work. Show up. Do more than you're paid for. Be the guy everyone can count on. So I did. I became the guy who stayed late when the interns botched the data. The guy who could spot a broken formula in an Excel sheet with a glance. The guy who remembered clients' birthdays even when the CRM didn't. I didn't just do my job. I covered for everyone else's. At first, they thanked me. That part fades fast. After about 10 years, thanks turned to expectation. Then, expectation turned into invisibility. I didn't mind. Not at first. I wasn't in it for the spotlight. While others jockeyed for position in meetings, I watched, took notes, made sure nothing fell through the cracks. My reward? Another day of being asked to just check over this real quick before someone else presented my cleaned-up version as their own. Still, I swallowed it. Pride wasn't the point. Stability was. But over the last few years, something changed. Maybe the world shifted, maybe I stayed the same, or maybe the mask just slipped off one too many people. Suddenly, being reliable wasn't respected. It was resented. Like I was a relic from a world they were eager to forget. I watched colleagues 20 years my junior call in sick for mental health resets every other Friday. I covered their projects. I took meetings they forgot to reschedule. I corrected their mistakes, quietly. It wasn't bitterness I felt, at least not at first. It was confusion. And then came Jeremy. He arrived like a glitter bomb in a quiet library. 24, with bleached hair, velvet pants, and a ring in his nose. On his first day, he showed up 20 minutes late and recorded a TikTok in the men's room, showing off what he called his LGBT outfit of the day. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He had charm, I'll give him that. People liked him. Not because he was good, he wasn't, but because he was loud. Loud about who he was, what he wanted, and what he didn't believe in. Deadlines, mostly. HR adored him. He brings such energy, they said. He's pushing our brand forward. I wanted to ask what exactly that brand was, but I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. Meanwhile, I kept doing the work. Jeremy forgot to follow up with a client. I picked it up. Jeremy sent out a proposal riddled with typos. I fixed it before anyone noticed. I didn't do it for him. I did it because the client didn't deserve incompetence, and the company couldn't afford another fire to put out. At least, that's what I told myself. Meetings grew more performative. Strategy sessions became content brainstorms. There was talk of vibe alignment and generational synergy. I sat through it all, hands folded, listening to people who'd been out of college for 5 minutes explain business principles I'd practiced longer than they'd been alive. I started to wonder if maybe I was the fool. Maybe being dependable was a liability now. Maybe integrity was outdated. But still, I stayed. Until the Tuesday afternoon when my boss, Melissa, called me into her office. She's the kind of woman who learned leadership through LinkedIn posts. Her blazer had shoulder pads like a battleship, and she always spoke like she was announcing a rebrand. That day, she smiled like she was about to give me a puppy. "Paul," she said, leaning forward, "you know we all appreciate your commitment. You've been the backbone around here for a long time." I nodded, cautious. I'd seen this script before. But, she went on, we're shifting, evolving. We're trying to create a more vibrant energy, something modern, something that reflects where we're headed. And to be honest, the team feels like you're, well, killing the vibe. I stared at her. I genuinely thought she was joking. I'm killing the vibe. It's not personal, she said quickly. It's just, your energy is very structured, and that can be a little stifling in the current climate. I looked at her. 30 years of my life, reduced to structured. The very thing that held her department together was now a mood killer. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't beg for relevance. I stood up, walked out of her office, grabbed my coat from the back of my chair, and left. No goodbye emails, no post-it notes, no explanation. I left quietly. Let them see how long the vibe survives without a backbone. The thing about walking out after 30 years is that you expect some sort of sound, some thunderclap or tremor, some force to mark the moment. But it was quiet. Not just outside, not just in the office. I mean, inside me. A silence so complete, it felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs and replaced with something heavier. I didn't say a word, didn't pack up the knickknacks on my desk, didn't shut down my computer. I didn't even turn off the little desk fan I'd used every summer since 2004. I just took my coat off the back of the chair, the same chair I'd sat in through recessions, mergers, system overhauls, and walked out. No one looked up. That felt right. Fitting, even. I made it to the parking lot before the gravity started to catch up. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was more like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing you'd already jumped. Only now you had to decide whether to flap your arms or accept the fall. I sat in my car for a long time, keys in hand, not starting the engine, just sitting. When I got home, I placed my coat on the hook by the door, like I always did. I poured a whiskey, mid-shelf, nothing dramatic, and lowered myself into the same armchair I'd collapsed into for years after late nights at the office. Usually I'd throw on the news or skim emails on my phone, but there were no emails now, no deadlines to check, no, sorry to bother you, Paul, but can you look at this real quick? There was nothing. I stared at the wall, not in a poetic, contemplative way, just literally, for hours. The silence in my apartment was different from the silence at the office. This one didn't hum with fluorescent light or clicking keyboards. This one was just me, and the sound of a refrigerator that needed defrosting. I didn't sleep that night. My mind went backward, to the missed birthdays, the canceled vacations, the time my brother asked me to be best man, and I said I'd try to make it depending on Q3 client reviews. I made it, sure, but barely. I remembered my mother's final days in hospice and how I spent them commuting between the hospital and spreadsheets because no one else knew how to fix the damn macros. That stupid project shipped on time. My mother didn't. Was that loyalty? Was that devotion? I wasn't sure anymore. For the next few days, I drifted. I made coffee too early and didn't drink it until it was cold. I watched TV without following the plot. I ignored the news and left my phone on silent. I didn't tell anyone I'd left, not even my sister. I just needed time to feel the hole that had opened in my life and figure out whether it was a loss or a release. On the third day, I found myself scrubbing the grout in my bathroom with a toothbrush. I'd always said I'd get around to it, and now I had. I worked until my knees ached, not because I needed the bathroom clean, but because I needed to prove to myself I still knew how to do something right. Finish something. Take care of something that was mine. On the fourth day, I woke up without setting an alarm. It was jarring, but it also felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. I made breakfast, real breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee while it was hot. I looked out the window. I noticed things, how the light hit the corner of the table, how the mailman always wore the same hat. The absence of purpose was strange, but also peaceful. And then came the 5th day. It was almost noon when the call came in. I recognized the name on the screen, Drew. Good guy. One of the few left at Alder and Finch I actually liked. Mid-30s, sharp, still figuring things out but had integrity. We'd shared a dozen late nights cleaning up projects together, swapping tired sarcasm over vending machine coffee. I answered. "Paul," he said, "you won't believe what just happened." I sat up. My pulse kicked, like some forgotten reflex snapping awake. "What?" "She's imploding." "Melissa?" "The whole department." He started talking fast. The client pitch Jeremy was supposed to lead, total disaster. Slides in the wrong order, branding all wrong, and apparently he showed up 10 minutes late and called the potential client Babe on the call. HR got wind of some video he posted from the office bathroom, shirtless with glitter. The higher-ups are furious. Legal's involved. People are talking about restructuring, maybe even heads rolling. I was silent for a beat. "You walked out," Drew said, like it had finally clicked for him. "You knew this was coming." "I didn't," I said honestly. "Not exactly. But maybe, somewhere in my bones, I had." Maybe the real surprise was how little I felt like going back. He asked if I was okay. I said I was figuring it out. He said he'd keep me posted. Before hanging up, he paused and added, "The place isn't the same without you, Paul." I stared at the phone for a long time after that. For the first time in 30 years, I realized something. It wasn't me who needed that place. It was them. 3 days after the call from Drew, the stories started pouring in like water through a cracked dam. It began with a LinkedIn message from a former intern, Shelby, I think, telling me she hoped I was doing okay. And then, with almost indecent glee, added, "You probably already heard about the Jeremy disaster. Absolute chaos over here." I hadn't heard details yet, but the word disaster did tickle something in me. I let the message sit unanswered. There was something satisfying about just reading it and doing nothing. Later that night, Drew called again. This time he was laughing, exhausted, borderline manic laughter, the kind that happens when people are too tired to cry. "You remember the Gibson presentation?" he asked. I did. Big insurance client, meticulous account. "Well, Jeremy double-booked it. Thought it was Wednesday. It was Monday." "Let me guess. He didn't show." "He showed, 40 minutes in. Tried to play it off like they were early." I winced. Did Melissa go? She was at some DEI branding webinar. Didn't even know about the meeting. Gibson pulled out. Said they can't trust a firm that can't read a damn calendar. That was bad. But it wasn't over. "There's more," Drew said, almost whispering. "Compliance ran a soft audit. You know how you used to review all the contractor invoices?" "Yeah." "Well, no one has since you left. Turns out there's 6 months' worth of inconsistencies. Duplicate payments, vendor IDs mismatched. Some accounts bill twice, others not at all." My stomach sank, not from guilt, but from recognition. I knew those cracks. I used to seal them without a second thought. Quietly. No fuss. Just part of the job. "They called in finance to investigate," Drew said. "Someone said the errors go back even further, but you were correcting them without telling anyone." I didn't deny it. I had. Not because I wanted a gold star, but because I couldn't stand to see sloppy work define the company. The next day, my old work email, still linked on my phone out of habit, lit up like a Christmas tree. Most of it was noise. auto-replies, newsletters, internal threads I no longer belonged to. But nestled between the clutter were direct messages with subject lines like, "Quick question, need your help." "Urgent, can you clarify this entry?" "Paul, are you available?" Some were from names I recognized. A few were from people who'd never spoken directly to me once in 3 years. I didn't open them. Just seeing the subjects was enough. I felt the first flicker of vindication then. Not a warm glow, but a cold, sharp flick. Not joy, not triumph, just proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that my work had mattered, even if they never said so. But beneath that came something stranger. Guilt. Not heavy, not enough to call anyone back, but present. Like hearing someone trip behind you and realizing, belatedly, they'd been leaning on your shoulder the whole time. The Jeremy situation worsened. Rumors swirled through the grapevine. I got bits and pieces from former colleagues. Screenshots, whispered stories, a blurry photo of Jeremy flexing shirtless in the mirror of the women's restroom. Supposedly, it was part of a gender freedom series he was filming on TikTok. HR got involved. Legal too. People were calling it a potential liability now. The same kid they once said energized the culture. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then, on the 7th day, a different kind of message came through. Not from Alder and Finch. It was a recruiter, Laura, from Barrington Strategic Partners. Big name. We'd competed against them on several bids over the years. I always respected their precision. "Hi, Paul," she wrote. "I hope this message finds you well. I've followed your work for some time, and we've heard you're no longer at Alder. We'd love to talk. Your reputation precedes you." I reread that last line 5 times. Your reputation precedes you. It felt like oxygen after a long walk underwater. We scheduled a call. She spoke like someone who knew exactly what I brought to a table. She'd seen the reports I'd co-authored, read the audits I'd salvaged, even quoted a comment I once made at a public Q&A 5 years ago. She didn't talk about vibes or energy. She talked about leadership, about legacy. She said they'd been waiting for the right moment to approach me. Apparently, that moment was now. It should have felt like revenge, but it didn't. It felt steady, clean, a door closing, and another opening without a creak. That night, as I sat by my window with a mug of tea, no whiskey this time, I realized I hadn't thought about Alder and Finch once all day. Not until now. That absence of weight, of dread and pressure and performance, it was starting to feel normal, natural. Like this was who I'd always been, underneath the obligation. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a text. "Can we talk?" Melissa. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't answer. Not yet. She picked the place. Some modern cafe with matte black tables, Edison bulbs, and plants hanging from the ceiling like they were part of an art exhibit. The kind of place where everyone has a MacBook and no one eats. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and sat facing the door. Melissa walked in 5 minutes late. Her coat was expensive, her walk rehearsed, and her smile so polished I could practically hear it squeak. She spotted me, waved like we were old friends catching up after a vacation, and sat down across from me with the energy of someone who still thought she controlled the room. "Paul," she said brightly, like nothing had happened. "You look good." I nodded, but didn't return the compliment. There was a long pause. She tapped her nails on the table, then leaned forward with faux concern. "I've been meaning to reach out sooner. Things have just been, well, I'm sure you've heard." "I've heard," I said, sipping my coffee. More silence. She clearly expected me to save her from it. I didn't. Finally, she exhaled dramatically. Look, I think we both know our last conversation could have gone better. That's so. I may have misspoken, she said, trying to sound reflective. When I said you were killing the vibe, I meant it more in the sense of culture fit. You know how important that is now. It wasn't personal. It wasn't? Of course not, she said quickly. It was about the energy we were trying to cultivate. A more dynamic, adaptive flow. You know, agile thinking. You mean chaos, I said flatly. She blinked, caught off guard. You replaced consistency with noise, I continued, and now you're surprised everything's breaking. She forced a chuckle. Okay, I see you've been talking to people. I'm not here to argue. I'm here because, well, we need someone with your level of institutional memory, someone who knows the bones of the place. I let that sit in the air. She wanted me back, not because I mattered, but because she was bleeding and needed a bandage. I watched her squirm in her tailored blazer, eyes darting, fingers adjusting a bracelet that didn't need adjusting. Do you even know what I did every day? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You maintained operations, oversaw contractor workflows, handled client. No, I interrupted. That's what my job description said. I'm asking if you actually know what I did. She went quiet. I made sure invoices weren't duplicated. I fixed proposals before they embarrassed you. I trained 4 project managers unofficially because no one else would. I translated chaos into structure and pretended it was easy. I showed up. Every day. And when someone dropped a ball, I caught it without telling you. Because I didn't want credit. I wanted the company to succeed. She looked down, suddenly fascinated by the condensation on her iced tea. I watched you ignore that, I said. Reward people who showed up late, left early, posted lip-sync videos during office hours. I watched you praise noise, while people like me carried the load. She looked up. We were trying to modernize. You were trying to be trendy. There's a difference. She shifted in her seat. Paul, I'm not here to debate the past. I'm here because we need to stabilize. You know the systems. The clients trust you. We can offer a consultant role, competitive rate, flexible schedule. I've already accepted another offer. That shut her up, completely. She blinked again, slower this time. With who? Barrington. Her lips parted slightly. She didn't speak, but I saw it hit her like a slap. She knew what that meant, knew what they represented. Barrington wasn't just a competitor. They were what Alder and Finch wanted to be when it grew up. They offered me more money, more respect, and more clarity in a 5-minute phone call than I got from you in 5 years, I said. They didn't care about vibe. They cared about value. She nodded slowly, face frozen in a smile that had long since died in her eyes. Well, I hope it works out. I stood. She stood too, and just as I turned to leave, she said it. We'll see how long they like your kind of energy. I stopped, didn't turn around, just let it hang there, like a cheap curtain in a doorway I'd already walked through. Then I walked out. No anger, no bitterness, just a quiet kind of satisfaction. Let her cling to her vibe. I had something better now. Substance. First days are usually awkward. New building, new faces, new acronyms. You spend the first hour pretending to remember names, and the rest pretending you aren't calculating the nearest exit. But my first day at Barrington wasn't like that. The building was glass and steel, sure, modern and wide open. But what struck me was the way people greeted me like I already belonged. There was no nervous energy, no smug hierarchy, no cold, you'll prove yourself eventually looks. Just quiet nods, firm handshakes, and a surprising number of glad to have you here. My manager, Devon, early 40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense, walked me to my desk himself. "You come highly recommended," he said. "We've been watching your work for a while." It wasn't flattery. It didn't feel like a sales pitch. It felt like recognition. I sat down at a clean desk with a new laptop and no baggage. No ancient file folders, no coffee-stained printouts, no post-it notes from long-forgotten tasks. Just a blank slate. And I liked it. The team was younger than me, most of them by at least 15 years. But not careless. They were curious. They asked questions and actually listened to the answers. One of the junior analysts, Priya, pulled me aside on day 2 and asked if I'd show her how I caught vendor invoice mismatches without software alerts. I walked her through my method, half expecting her to check her phone halfway through. She didn't. She took notes. She thanked me. And the next day, she flagged a duplicate charge in a client's monthly report. She gave me credit on the group call. No fanfare, just a simple "Paul taught me to look for it." It hit harder than any employee of the month I'd never received at Alder and Finch. By week 2, I was asked to sit in on strategy sessions. Not to babysit, not to clean up messes, but to offer perspective. People asked what I thought, and when I told them, they nodded like it mattered. Because here, it did. The difference wasn't just procedural, it was cultural. There were no ego contests in meetings. No one tried to talk over me or summarize my point as their own. If I paused, people waited. If I pushed back, they considered it instead of retreating into corporate jargon. I wasn't carrying the team. I was part of it. It felt new. And right. 2 months in, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a vacation. Not a long one. 4 days in a cabin near the coast. No phone, no laptop, no just-in-case briefing notes. I walked on beaches, cooked meals for one, and listened to music that wasn't trying to motivate or energize or sell anything. Just music. I came back rested. Not just less tired. Rested. Like my spine had loosened. Like I remembered how to breathe from my belly again. On a whim, I accepted a dinner invitation from a woman I'd met at a bookstore. Clara. Smart, funny, had a laugh that could split silence like glass. We talked about books, not work. I told her I'd just changed jobs. She asked what I liked about it, not what my title was, or who I reported to, or how much I made. I didn't stumble for an answer, because I knew. Meanwhile, word from Alder and Finch drifted to me like the scent of a burnt-out building. Drew kept me loosely in the loop. Jeremy was gone, quietly, awkwardly, following a second HR investigation no one wanted to talk about. 3 senior analysts resigned in the same week. A client dropped them. The board brought in a consultant to assess leadership gaps. Melissa was suddenly exploring new opportunities. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel like I needed to. When I thought back to my final days there, it wasn't anger that came up. It was disbelief at how long I stayed, at how much I tolerated, at how little I asked for in return. Somewhere along the line, I had convinced myself that quiet endurance was a virtue, that being overlooked was the price of professionalism, that earning respect silently would eventually pay off. But it never did. Not there. Here, though, it's different. I still show up early, still check the numbers twice, still answer emails with full sentences and punctuation. But now, when I speak, people hear me. When I finish something, they thank me. And not because I demand it, because they mean it. I'm not trying to kill any vibe. I'm just finally living in mine. And as I write this, sitting by the window in my apartment, rain tapping the glass, and a record playing in the background, I feel something I hadn't in a very long time. Peace. I didn't leave quietly. I left with my dignity intact, and that's louder than anything they ever heard.